Hello and a very warm welcome to all of you. I'm Neha Bhardwaj-Alter and this is Game On. Afghanistan will play South Africa in their last league game and will look to end on a high after having beaten three former champions and Netherlands in this edition of the World Cup. South Africa have their own demons to deal with after having been thrashed by India by 243 runs. They would want to carry the winning momentum though, after winning the game today into the knockouts. Chetan Narula is here with us. Jamie Alter is here with us. Guys, the equation is pretty straightforward. 438 runs is what Afghanistan need if they want to qualify for the semi-finals. And clearly, that's that's not going to be easily done. So, what are you expecting from today's game? Let's start with Chetan, then I'll come to Jamie.
Hello, Meha. Well, it's just a formality now, the remaining games after New Zealand's win last night. The calculations that have been going on social media for Pakistan, I mean, nobody's been even talking about Afghanistan. Just the calculations for Pakistan have been keeping us all entertained. From that perspective, I think it's just a formality. I think what we can expect from Afghanistan is that they go into the game and showcase us what they have been doing throughout this tournament. They need to show us that they are not mentally disintegrated by that loss to Australia, or in fact, I should say the loss to Glenn Maxwell. They should show us that they are still a team that has performed miracles in this tournament, and it sets the platform for their future in white ball cricket. At the same time, South Africa, they suffered a huge loss against India. So from that perspective, I think it's a game for both sides to prove something. South Africa have a huge semi-final coming up against an Australian side, which is looking unbeatable at the moment, especially in terms of belief. Yeah. So both sides coming from a bit of a pace thing, and they will need to prove themselves once again.
Difficult to lift themselves up after the kind of pasting they got from Glenn Maxwell, Jamie, but Mujibur Rahman, I don't know how he's dealing with the fact that he dropped a dolly when Maxwell was on 33. And after that, the whole game changed. I can't imagine that he'll have to live with that for the rest of his life. Things could have been very different, but it wasn't to be.
Yeah, I think that, and like we discussed before, not really getting to top gear or anywhere near top gear in that match against Bangladesh. How poor Bangladesh have been. Yeah. I think that's the match which is actually going to hurt Afghanistan more when they look back and they sit down and they, whatever teams do after they end the World Cup. It could have been a case of this close, this far, but I think it's that match more than this one, because had they won that match, and we've seen their batting, how good has the middle order been? It just got better and better and better. They really stood up. They're getting 270, 280, 291 against Australia. So a lot of pluses, but that shoddy match against Bangladesh, and then not just Mujib, overall the fielding has not been very, very good. But yeah, if you want one main reason why Glenn Maxwell got 201 not out, you would have to say, because the catch when he was on 24, Shahidi had to cover a lot of ground from short cover. He had to dive. But Mujib, given the fact that he's been playing for so long, it's by their standards, it was a very, very simple catch. So yeah, he will probably, let's hope he recovers from it someday. But right now, given the promise of what their campaign could have been, I'm sure he's feeling horrible right now. And let's hope that he picks himself up, because they have to play one more match,
Absolutely. So as discussed, Afghanistan, they have an impossible task at hand today versus South Africa, who claimed their place in the final four after 6 wins from 8 matches. However, the 2 losses have come when they failed to get to a target of 245 set by Netherlands, and then most recently when they were bowled out for 83 by India. And on the one occasion that South Africa did win when chasing, it was a very close 1-wicket victory over a sloppy Pakistan. Looking at the past 2 years, the Proteas have won 14 of their 20 ODIs in which they've batted first, while winning 6 of 13 in which they have chased. And in this World Cup, South Africa have a collective run rate of 7.5 when batting first, as compared to 4.78 when chasing. So then, is this something that their opponents today, as well as in the semi-final, will look to exploit if they win the toss? It is going to be an interesting one, but this is at the Narendra Modi Stadium, the largest cricket stadium in the world. We're all waiting for the two finalists who will be playing there on the 19th of November. But today itself, Chetan, to think that South Africa will have their own issues as well. And today, given that this is their last league match of the, of the tournament, they would want to win this because of the demons that they deal with in knockout games. So, this is important. It doesn't matter whether Afghanistan is able to win by 438 runs, which is impossible. But I'm saying just a win for South Africa here is important psychologically when they are playing Australia.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I think you look at both sides and who has more at stake here in this particular game. I mean, Afghanistan, like I said, they would want to show us that, that particular loss doesn't really matter as much. And they are a side which has grown in stature, which has grown in experience and grown in the way they play their cricket. But at the same time, I think for South Africa, this game matters more. It's not a dead rubber by any chance. Because I still remember what their coach said at the Eden Gardens after they were thrashed by India, that the team was perhaps thinking that they're already in the semi-finals, so this game doesn't really mean anything. Yes, even this game against Afghanistan doesn't really mean anything. So you can't just sit on your laurels and say, oh, you know what? We are in the semi-finals. We are only going to perform once we get there in the semi-finals against Australia.
Exactly.
No, you're beating a team, or you're going to meet a team which has won, 5, 6 games in a row, and you have been given a pasting by India. You can't lose to Afghanistan and go into that game. So we've talked and talked and talked about South Africa's mental space. I have made a case that this choker's tag doesn't apply to this particular group of players. But again, there have been question marks raised about their mental state in terms of how they are facing the game. Are they only good enough when they are batting first? Can they inspire themselves for big challenges, big games? And I think the true test of such sides is when you can fire yourself up for games like these, games which do not really matter in the longer run because you've already qualified for the semi-final, but you know that they are important and that you have to win these games to keep the momentum going, to keep the rhythm going, and to, most of all, South Africa need to make a statement and say, okay, you know what, Australia, Glenn Maxwell may have brought you from the brink, done the impossible, but you need to be afraid of us because we have beaten you and beaten you handsomely. So they need to show themselves as that same South Africa that beat Australia and not the South Africa that lost to India in Eden Gardens.
Which then takes me to the next question, Jamie. If Temba Bavuma wins the toss today, what will they look to do? Will they go with their, tried and tested method of batting first, or would they like to challenge themselves and bowl?
It's a tricky one. I would say, I mean, most logic would dictate that you just stick to what you do. You brought up the results, not just in this World Cup, but overall in ODIs this last year. And it says, when they bat first, they're a different team. That said, there is enough logic to suggest that maybe they would want to put themselves out of the comfort zone and chase. But then again, they're just coming off, a pasting at the hands of India, where once again, all those doubts came out again. It was not a knockout match, but you were bowled out for 83. That was not an 83 all-out type pitch. So given South Africa's history of confusion, of cobwebs between the ears, of being a very, very different team when chasing, I don't know whether this is one of those situations where they can say, hey, let's put ourselves outside our comfort zone. Because the 3 times it's happened, they lost to Netherlands, they were steamrolled by India, and then they barely won, So it's not like they have not been put, out of their comfort zone. They have. And they've only barely, by literally the smallest margin possible in cricket when chasing, they won. So I would say stick to your batting. Hope it works for you. You've still got a fantastic batting lineup against the Afghanistan team. It's Ahmedabad batting first is the way to go. Maybe if you were to compare the two scenarios, they probably stand to gain a bit more from a typical South Africa batting first performance. Going into, again, like we said, if there's one team they would not want to face because of past history, it is Australia. So it's probably 80%, I would say just stick with what's working. Keep that 20%. And, yes, we want to be tested. But then again, when you're doing that, remember that you have been tested 3 times and twice you failed. So it's a
It's
tough
a
one.
tricky one. Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Chetan? Do you agree with Jamie?
In terms of what trying to chase today.
Yes.
Uh, it's a tricky one. On the one hand, South Africa would want to say, okay, you know what, we have to prove a point. And when has South Africa been the most dominant? Whenever they have batted first, they have
Yes.
come out to be the more dominant side. They've put on 400 plus. Heinrich Klaassen coming at number 5, he smashed big hundreds. Quinton de Kock has scored hundreds. When have they appeared meek? When they have chased. So it's a question. Yes, you would want to challenge yourself, but at the same time, you're also thinking, I want to present my most dominant side to that Australian team. At the same time, I don't want to appear weak when I'm chasing. So I think South Africa would want to bat first, try and feel like South Africa again, do best what they have been doing best. Because we have to remember, in Ahmedabad, the pitches haven't been the flattest. These pitches have been taking a bit of turn. They've been slowing down through the game. The ball has gotten softer and it's been tough to score. So they do not want to put themselves in a position where Afghanistan again puts 280 runs on the board. And we know, as Jamie has proven time and again, that South Africa have a weakness in chasing. So as much as they would want to prove a point that no, we can chase, I think they would want to stay in their comfort zone and send out a dominant message to Australia. So I think they would like to bat first.
Okay, now the match that New Zealand played against Sri Lanka, that has made sure that the other two, which is Afghanistan and Pakistan, are all but out, but there is a mathematical possibility. So where does yesterday's result leave the other two teams still mathematically in with a chance? Afghanistan and Pakistan could also get to 10 points, but both teams will need improbably massive victories to overhaul the Black Caps' run rate. Afghanistan, who have a net run rate of minus 0.338, they play South Africa today, and they've all but knocked out of they're all but knocked out of the semi-finals. Pakistan have a net run rate of 0. We've got the scenarios, don't we? And we've got a net run rate of 0.036, and their last match is with Pakistan tomorrow. Their task is similarly improbable. Here are the scenarios for Pakistan. If they score 300 batting first, Pakistan will need to keep England to just 13 runs. If they score 350, they will need to keep England to a score of 62, get to 400, and then bowl out England for 112. For Afghanistan, the predicament is even more ridiculous. First, if they're batting first, they score 500 and then beat South Africa by 438 runs. So almost impossible for these two teams. Of course, people are still, on social media, Pakistani fans still trying everything, got their calculators out, trying to figure out how Pakistan can get in. But at the moment, it is very difficult for them to do so. Just looking at this as well now, for Afghanistan, how good has this team been? Now, they've not qualified. Let's just say that. But how good has this team been? And they can, despite having lost like the way they did against Australia, they can, get out of this tournament with their heads held high because of how well they've done. And it hasn't just been a few players. It's been a collective team effort with their bat, with the ball. It's been the whole team that has done well, Chetan, and that's been fantastic to watch. We were thinking when they came in, we said, oh, Rashid Khan, Mohammad Nabi, they're going to be the bowlers who do well, but it hasn't just been them. In spin also, there's Noor Ahmed who did well. It's the same thing with their pace attack. They've done well. And then, of course, their batting, which has got their top 4 all among runs.
It's an interesting one that you asked me. I mean, you look at it, and in an improbable situation, both Afghanistan and Pakistan are in the running. Afghanistan will want to ask themselves, which has been the better side in this tournament? Have we done better than Pakistan? And there's a huge rivalry there. And, we just saw the way the entire Pakistan cricket community reacted with that loss to Afghanistan. It was almost like there's been some natural calamity there in that country or something like that. So Afghanistan, just from that fact alone, that they have outperformed a team like Pakistan, not only beaten them in the particular game that they played, but they have outperformed them in the manner that they have played. They've better spinners. They've had three pacers who've performed really well. They've had batsmen who've increased their form, who've increased the way they bat, who've increased their batting acumen, if I can say so. Just an overall improvement in their batting performance from game to game to game. Afghanistan has outplayed 1992 champions across the tournament, not just in that one game. And I think irrespective of the result today, Afghanistan would be very, very satisfied. Knowing them, they would not be satisfied. They would say, oh, you know what, we missed out on the semi-final. We probably deserved the semi-final. But they're laying down a very, very strong foundation for the future. And I think they should be glad and they should celebrate after today's game that they have outplayed a team which is at the foremost of world cricket, Pakistan. They've been former champions. They've beaten 4 former champions. They almost beat a 5th. So from that perspective, I think Afghanistan, they just, after today's game, they just need to put up their feet and say, okay, you know what? This is a job well done. And now we have laid the foundation for the next World Cups to come. Let's start planning for the T20 World Cup next year, because they can really do a miracle in the West Indies next year.
To think that all their top 5 batters, Jamie, they've got 250 plus runs. Bowlers have all been among the wickets. And we thought before they came into the tournament that, a lot will depend on how Rashid Khan bowls. He hasn't been as consistent, but their bowlers have collectively done well. Similarly, a lot would have, as before coming into the tournament, we said a lot would depend on Rahmanullah Gurbaz. He's done well, but others have rallied around him, which has been the story of this tournament. To think that this team had won one game each in 2015 and 2019, that too against Scotland, to now beating 3 former champions and Netherlands. This is a story that they're not going to forget ever.
They're not going to forget it, and this is a story that has to be, it has to be built on. They have to go forward. We're talking about next year T20 format. They need to build on this. You cannot regress. Pakistan in the last 20 years since the 2003 World Cup have reached the same amount of semi-finals as Kenya has. So that says where Afghanistan, I'm not saying they've got semi-finals, but when you come off, like you said, 1 win in 8 years to now winning 4, and look how close they were on 2 occasions. They should have been on 12 points today, 12 points. They've got to 8. You have tripled your past success. Outstanding. You mentioned the batting. All the main batsmen have got over 250. On the other side, on the bowling stakes, not a single bowler has got to 10 wickets, which is kind of surprising. But again, it says, like Chetan often stresses upon, the wickets being distributed is actually signs of progress. You beat Pakistan, you beat England, you have achieved a lot. Sri Lanka, I'm not going to get much to it because they were bad. But personally, for me, my pre-World Cup prediction was of the top 4. I had Netherlands at 10, I had Afghanistan at 9, I had Sri Lanka at 8, and I had Bangladesh at number 7. Look at what Afghanistan has done. They're right in the middle now. So it's fantastic. We're all celebrating them. We should celebrate what they've done against the odds. But let's hope that next year, in 9-10 months in the West Indies, we see progress. 2 years from now, they have qualified for the Champions Trophy. Wherever it's held, let's see progress, because Nabi will leave, Rashid will leave, Shahidi will leave, Rehman Shah will leave. What are the young guys? And I think a cautionary note is Naveen Ulhaq at the age of 23 saying that I'm done with 1 days before this World Cup is over. He might retract it given how well the team has done, but Afghanistan need to just show that this was a lot of flash in the pan, because their past 2 World Cups with a majority of the same players, probably 50 to 60% of the same players were there. The last 2 World Cups were abysmal. This has been outstanding. Let's praise them. But again, they need to ensure that this does not remain the only one-day World Cup they are remembered for.
Okay, now this is what happened. Jamie was talking about Sri Lanka. This is what happened last night. Then New Zealand now are all set to, excuse me, claim the 4th and the final semi-final spot after beating Sri Lanka by 5 wickets yesterday. The Black Caps backed Kane Williamson's decision to field by keeping Sri Lanka to 171 and then reach their target in a whopping 160 balls delivery left in that chase, thus boosting their net run rate to 0.743. The result means that New Zealand have snapped a 4-match losing streak to end their group stage campaign on 10 points. Their openers, Devon Conway and Rachin Ravindra, both scored 40s in a partnership of 86 from 74 balls, and then Daryl Mitchell got 43 in quick time before Glenn Phillips finished the chase in the 24th over. This gave Sri Lanka their 7th loss in 9 matches and puts them at 9th in the standings, and they now need other results to go their way so that they can end up in the top 8 on net run rate and qualify for the 2025 Champions Trophy. Keeping England's campaign aside, I thought the most disappointing team, the two most disappointing teams have been Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. Jamie was talking about it as well. If you've seen a fairy tale for Afghanistan, Sri Lanka once again completely collapsing against a brilliant New Zealand side. I mean, this would have given New Zealand a lot of confidence in the way they completely outplayed Sri Lanka last night. Chetan?
I think there are cautionary tales here, Meha. I mean, you look at, you look at how far Sri Lankan cricket has fallen. I was there in 2017 last, and I did a story on their club cricket structure, how it has been diluted. You know, the strength of Sri Lankan cricket actually came from their club structure. There were very limited number of teams, but they had a lot of feeder clubs providing cream players coming into the regional side, and then from the regional sides, you were picking your national side. What they did was they increased the number of regional sides, which means that a lot of clubs, you know, when there were a fewer number of clubs feeding to the fewer number of regional sides, now the same number of clubs are feeding to a higher number of regional sides, which has diluted their talent pool a lot. So Sri Lanka's cricket problems go deep in terms of their domestic structure. Pakistan, I think they really need to be careful, because from the news that I've been reading, I had a chat with Ramiz Raja in 2019 as well. And he told me that, you know, Pakistan's domestic cricket structure is going down the drain. And now with the PSL taking foremost importance, you know, it was actually a boon that they were playing the PSL in the UAE.
Yeah.
Because then they could keep on playing their domestic structure, domestic cricket back at home. But now with the PSL back in Pakistan, they need to chalk out 2 months from their domestic calendar and play the PSL, make sure the pitches are hard enough, good enough for the PSL. And I think they're introducing a couple more T20 leagues. You know, there's a lot of controversy about that as well. So Pakistan needs to be careful about its domestic structure. Otherwise, it risks falling down the pegging order, because look, they have no pacers, they have no spinners. You know, when was the last time you didn't see a world-class spinner from Pakistan? How are world-class spinners going to come on pitches like that? So they really need to be careful. As for Afghanistan, I think Bangladesh is a warning for Afghanistan, because Bangladesh, they've not gone anywhere. You know, ever since they got their test status, they've done well in some tournaments. I mean, you remember the 2007 tournament. They've done well in 2015 World Cup. They reached the I think they reached the quarterfinal, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they should have gone up, but their trajectory has gone downwards. They've become stagnant. They have some superstars, they have some youngsters, they have some experienced players, but no one is really gelling. That team is not gelling on the international level. So for Pakistan, Sri Lanka cricket is a warning. For Afghanistan, Bangladesh cricket is a warning that you need to keep that upward trajectory. You need to take care of your domestic cricket. Otherwise, it paints a very, very bleak picture for cricket in Southeast Asia, apart from India, which is safe and secure, whether it's domestic cricket or you know, whether it's international cricket. So I think there's a lesson or two there for teams like Pakistan and Afghanistan, looking at what Sri Lanka and Bangladesh are suffering.
Okay. Now, there is a way that Pakistan can qualify, and it's a short way. Wasim Akram has this take on Pakistan's qualification, even as everybody else tries to figure out. He says this. He says, and it's a straightforward way, and I think Pakistan might even look to do this. He says Pakistan should bat first against England and post runs. then lock the England team in the dressing room and get them timed out. Jamie, that's a not a bad way. I mean, there has been a player who's been timed out, spirit of cricket or not, पूरी team को कर देते हैं.
Look, if the most sound, the most logical, the most celebrated analyst on that, fantastic. And let's face it, that has been one of the most fun panels to watch during this World Cup. If he's saying things like that, it just says, all that we've been talking about, all that most recently Chetan just highlighted. The system is broken, And you look at the four teams that Chetan just mentioned, The common thing is a weak board, right? The Bangladesh board in the best of times has fractions. Afghanistan board is just not able to match up with the others. The Sri Lankan board, since time immemorial, has had problems. And then the PCB. I mean, how many times have we discussed the problems with the PCB, right? So your team is at the end of the day reflective of the strength, the cohesiveness, the logic that with runs with the board and the selections, right? We've heard the big four, now it's the big three. Yes, England have finished 10 on 10, but overall their problems, and this is also factoring in the problem with the 100, their problems are nowhere near as grave as what Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh in particular are going on to face, right? The sign for the Sri Lankan team personally were there. I mentioned the fact that they had to go to the qualifiers. There's been turmoil in their own selection process. The fielding has been very, very poor. Fielding was poor in the qualifiers. The fielding has been poor here. So there's enough problems. And again, just in regards to Pakistan, yes, they have one more match left. It's against England, who've finally managed after a month to win a match. But like with Sri Lanka, like with Bangladesh, like with Afghanistan, like the West Indies, they're not here. They're also a mess. We're going to have to put that Pakistan team in that same pool, not just for the sake of cricket, but you have a Champions Trophy coming up in 2 years. Where's the one-day game going to be? I personally would not want to see another 50-over event. 2 years Champions Trophy, 4 years down the line in South Africa, a World Cup with 5 out of 10 teams just not being able to cope. And let's face it, there's a reason the broadcaster pressure makes the ICC go from 16 to 14 to 10 teams, right? We're hearing a lot of calls after Afghanistan won a match. They won 2 matches. Netherlands won a match. Bring in more teams. Bring in more teams. Unfortunately, it's not the case. Afghanistan have gone beyond expectations. The Netherlands have gone beyond expectations. If you throw in 4 more teams, like we'll see in 4 more years, and they're not able to achieve what Afghanistan have done, what Netherlands have done, you're going to have another very obvious scenario where there's 2 teams, runaway leaders, 2 more catching up, and maybe a 5th team. So it's all good to go after these 4 weak teams, but the bigger picture is the health of one-day cricket. Like I've been saying before the tournament, that has to be addressed. So let's hope the ICC, when the dust settles on this World Cup and everyone is celebrating, most likely India or Australia winning it, that the bigger picture is addressed. Why are Pakistan so poor? Why are Sri Lanka so poor? Why aren't the West Indies here? There's a much, much bigger problem looming for one-day cricket.
Okay, now Glenn Maxwell, who played one of the best ODI innings ever, the best, a lot of people would believe, I would think so. He has a plan for Indian bowling attack. He has said that the best way to nullify this Indian bowling attack is if you do this. So let's put that quote up. He says, I think one of the key things we found against India is that if you can get the ball scuffed early enough, play a few shots, even if it's swinging, just take them on, try and get some sort of edge into the cricket ball. If you can get them to stop swinging and make them go to spin, you can put them under some kind of pressure. I think we found that teams who've gone defensively against them in the power play, then you are just a sitting duck. You're basically going to bring them back in the game. This is what Glenn Maxwell has said about the Indian pace attack and what teams should do. The only problem is that if you try to attack this team or their pace attack, then you lose 3 wickets in the power play itself, and then you have to rebuild. Your reactions to that, Chetan?
Yeah, I'm not surprised Glenn Maxwell has said that.
Because that's his way of batting anyway.
That's his way of batting. I mean, if he let's say if he's opening against Bumrah or Shami, I don't expect Maxwell to play a defensive shot. He'll try to take them on, hit for a six, probably get
Yeah.
an inside edge and get bowled, and that'll be that first ball duck. So yeah, I'm not surprised. I hope Australia doesn't follow that because that'll be curtains. Who are you going to hit? Bumrah, Shami, maybe Siraj, but he's also found his rhythm. So look, this Indian bowling attack is really fearsome. It's beyond my pay grade to figure out how to beat them. So I'll
Leave
leave
it to
that to South
batsmen.
Africa and Australia and New Zealand. But yeah, New Zealand I think came the closest. What you need to do is see it's not black and white. Defense and attack is not black and white. There has to be equilibrium. We saw the way Devon Conway batted, Rachin Ravindra batted. Kane Williamson, he didn't play that game, did he? But what I'm trying to say is the way the New Zealand top order batted, they saw through the first 10 overs and then they took on Kuldeep Yadav. For me, that has to be the blueprint against this Indian lineup. You have to take your chances in the first 10, but you just can't go bang, 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 and then, you'll be 40 for 5 and then bowled out for 80 runs in 20 overs. There has to be a balance between defense and attack. You have to keep on taking the singles, maybe the odd boundary. It's okay if you're 40 for 1 after 10 overs because you can make it up in the remaining 40. The trick is to bat the remaining 40. If you only bat 25 overs against this Indian attack, you're going to be bowled out for 100 runs.
Yeah.
So the trick is to be 40 for 1 after 10 and then bat out the rest 10 because the only bowlers you can really put under pressure are Kuldeep Yadav and Mohammad Siraj. And yes, Kuldeep Yadav has been brilliant and all, but you can't, if you have to pick one of the two spinners to hit, and let's say on a Wankhede pitch, on a Kolkata pitch or an Ahmedabad pitch, it has to be Kuldeep Yadav because Ravindra Jadeja will have that, consistent line and length, and then his natural variation, which takes the ball away. So that's a tough one to pick because of the natural variation. Kuldeep Yadav, he's going to give it a lot more flight. He's going to land the ball in the hitting arc. So that's why you take a little more, few more chances against Kuldeep Yadav. So again, like I said, you have to bat out the 50 overs. You have to bring out a balanced strategy between defense and attack. Otherwise, yeah, don't listen to Glenn Maxwell, please.
He can do it, actually. I just don't think other openers in other teams can do it. But Jamie, the interesting thing from this is that it's a difficult one because you do want to start quickly in the power plays, which we've seen throughout this World Cup, right? Those 10 overs is where you can score a lot of runs. Look at what Rohit Sharma has been doing with this team. So a lot of openers would want to get quick starts. The pitch slows down, the ball gets soft, it's difficult to score against the spinners. But having said that, you also run the risk of getting out. So in that case, what does one do against this Indian bowling attack?
There's no straightforward answers. First of all, Glenn Maxwell is a bit giddy. He's coming off arguably the greatest innings ever. So I get the overconfidence. He's also someone who bats at number 6. Try telling this to Travis Head and Mitchell Marsh, who are coming off ducks to go and do this. And again, the Australians, look, this is what is Adam Gilchrist just said yesterday. Someone sent me a quote where he's giving credit or some part of the credit for India's bowling to Glenn McGrath at the MRA Pace Academy. How many of these guys have gone to MRA Pace Academy? The thing's been around for 45 years. I'm yet to see a fast bowler come out of there which has gone on to do great things for India, So the Australians are just now starting to amp up things. I'm all for it. It's good fun. But like Chetan said, you're going to hit Bumrah. You're going to hit Siraj. You're going to hit Mohammad Shami. Chalo, maan liya. On your day, you go after Kuldeep. What are you going to hit him for? 80 runs in 10 overs. I can see it happening. You think the other 4 bowlers are going to give you 150 runs? No. Hit Kuldeep. By all means, hit him. He'll still get 2 for 80. It'll look bad. But again, the bowling is so good. The other 4 bowlers are not going to give you 200 runs,
Yeah.
So it's just very, very tough to stop this Indian bowling attack. And I'm going to stick my neck out again and say, even if one bowler has a bad day, even without a six bowling option, they're
Yeah.
operating at a level I personally have never seen. Will
Yeah,
that bad day come?
it
Maybe,
may be.
but with
Yeah.
each passing day, I don't see it happening. How bad? Okay, with past the Indian teams, we know what bad can be. With this team, how bad can bad be? I'm rarely positive, but like I said, my positivity is increased. I'm a cynic on the best of days to rival Chetan, but this team is just doing such amazing things. How bad would their bad day be? It can't be that bad, honestly.
Yeah, trust my luck to get two cynics on the show every day. Yes, Chetan.
Look, you know, if you look at the collapses that Pakistan and New Zealand suffered, what it shows is that maybe you can have a passage of play. Pakistan had a good passage of play for around 14 overs when Rizwan and Babar were batting, and then New Zealand took on Kuldeep Yadav, and then and Jadeja was bowled out by the 30th over because you didn't have a sixth bowling option. So India was kind of hoping that there's a collapse and all, but then the collapse happened. What I'm trying to say is, inevitably, there is going to be a collapse, whether it's in the middle overs or it's in the second power play. So there's no one strategy with which you can take on this Indian bowling attack. You need to save wickets in the first power play so that you can bat out the 50 overs, so that you can take on one of the spinners. Taking on one bowler is not going to be enough. You have to take on two bowlers. Two bowlers have to go for 80 odd runs in their 10 overs, whether it's Siraj and Kuldeep or Jadeja and Kuldeep, whoever it may be. But it's not really easy. It's easier said than done. So there is going to be an inevitable collapse. How do you guard against that? It's yeah, like I said, it's
This
beyond
is,
my pay grade to sort out this Indian bowling attack.
this is like option 5. Option 1, try to do this. Option 2, try to do this. Option 5, just go swing at every delivery that's coming to you.
Yeah.
Take the attack to the opposition. But the other thing that he said, and there's just been praise coming for Mohammad Shami from all quarters. Yesterday we saw Wasim Akram shower praise on Mohammad Shami's bowling. Today Maxwell has spoken about it. He says Mohammad Shami's seam is the straightest thing in the world. The Carpenters would love to get a straight angle. Shami's too good with the new ball. We know how good Bumrah is, and Siraj is a wicket taker. So he might be the guy one can try and take on. But his late outswing is so difficult to face, which is what we've been saying so far, is that, who do you counter? Because if you think that Mohammad Shami, first change, you're going to take him on, he's superb in the way he's been bowling. Yes, Jamie, you wanted to add to the last point?
No, I'm just saying yes, for those 14 odd overs, Babar and Rizwan were forming a partnership. But go back and watch. It was never a partnership that really threatened to do much, because a lot of Rizwan's shots were not timed well. I think he got 38, 40, but the dot ball percentage was so high in that partnership. It just goes back to say, even if a team does start to get something going, the threat is virtually eliminated by the promise of what India can do. So I'm just trying to link back to what Glenn Maxwell was saying. Go ahead and try it, but this bowling attack is just something else. There's wickets pressure, there's dot ball pressure. Fielding has been very good. It's just the next to unbeatable Indian team.
Let's just take a look at what Wasim Akram had also said about this Indian pace attack, and then we'll move on to the toss. He had gone ahead and said that there is seam, there is swing, and Indian bowlers know exactly what to do in these conditions. He's also spoken about how beautiful Mohammad Shami's action is, how perfectly that seam lands. There is no wobble, there's no angle. It's very straight and it lands perfectly on the seam, and then you don't know which way it will turn, which is what gets all the batters confused. But since we can't seem to play that, what we're going to do is talk about the toss. Has that happened a little late? There you have it. Yay! For the starters, as a bowler, the confidence at this level has to be like, I'm one of the best. As these guys, the Indian pacers, have that confidence. Once you get that, then all the hard work of years pays off. That's one. But he also talks about Mohammad Shami's seam position. But it's time for us to come back to the match that is on today between Afghanistan and South Africa, where Afghanistan have won the toss, and no surprises there. They have opted to bat. And why not? I mean, Afghanistan are very sure of their batting. They want to bat first, bat big, and try to win this game. Would you say South Africa on the back foot already, Chetan?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it just depends really how they go about bowling. The Afghanistan pitch can be a bit too paced. The softer ball hasn't been doing too well. So the first 20 overs is where you need to do the bulk of your scoring. So South Africa have good bowlers. It just depends. And look, I think they should take it as a positive because, like Jamie had also said earlier, and like I had also pointed out, their dominant streak has been batting first, but there's no guarantee that's going to happen in the semi-final against Australia or in the final, whether it's India or New Zealand. So they have to be prepared to win by chasing, and so far they haven't really done that. So this is a good chance for them to showcase that. As much as they would have wanted to project a dominant side, they can still do that by chasing and bring in the feel-good factor. You can't be a world champion if you're just batting first and putting on 400 runs on the board. It just doesn't work like that. I mean, you'd probably be classified as the boundary count champions, Nakli champions that England were really. So do better, chase, and show that you can also chase and do some good work. So I think it's a good opportunity for South Africa.
Okay, so this is what Hashmatullah Shahidi, the captain of Afghanistan team, said at the toss. He says, we want to bat first. The surface looks like there will be spin in the second innings, so we're batting first. And Afghanistan team is unchanged from the last game. He also says it was a tough game for us and we were hurt. Today, it is an important game of the World Cup for us. That same Temba Bavuma at the toss says we have another chance to chase today. Excuse me, and we want to do well. A strong Indian side put us under pressure with bat and ball, but we want to do much better today. He says Tabriz Shamshi and Marco Jansen, they've been rested today. And Andil Peklukvayo, he is here, and Gerald Kutsia, they've come into the side, and that has been the change for South Africa. So let's take a look at the playing 11 for the two teams, if we can put those up, and talk about what we can expect. But Afghanistan have won the toss and they've opted to bat first at the Narendra Modi Stadium. Afghanistan's playing 11, it's unchanged. Let's take a look at South Africa's playing 11. Two changes there. Pehluk Wayo, he's there, and Gerald Kutsia is back in. Tabriz Shamshi, he sits out. Jamie, good decision to get an extra pacer.
Look, they've rested their most successful pace bowler in Marco Jansen. He was off in the last match, so it's okay. I mean, they've qualified. They want to give him a rest. They brought back Kutsia, who's been very, very impressive. Of course, they have form on their side. They have more wins, but chasing, again, there's no reason to believe that even against this bowling attack, because let's face it, they put up 291 against Australia. If Afghanistan bat just the way, they don't need to do a single thing. You often ask, what should they look to do? Don't do a single thing differently. Get to 280, and believe me, you've won this match.
Okay, prediction time then before we wrap this up. Chetan, you want to go first?
Are we predicting scores or match?
Yeah, we're predicting scores for now. At 6 o'clock is match results.
I think 270 is what Afghanistan will get. I don't see them going more than that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Narendra Modi Stadium's also, nobody's touched. Has 300 been touched there? No. Yes.
No.
Okay.
I mean, New Zealand could have, but they were chasing 280. But that was the only good batting surface we saw in this tournament at Ahmedabad.
Yeah. Jamie?
270 should be good, but because I think they're going to have a little bit of extra fire in them, I'm going to say 285.
Okay, I am going to say 220. is all that.
When did you start predicting?
Just today, I felt like. Okay, thank you so much, Chetan and Jamie, for joining us here. That's it then on this special. News 9 Live is what you need to subscribe to. For now, goodbye. Thanks for watching.